there's a team. And this is where we have to take the numbers. And this is where we have to take what we know and what we expect. There's a team that not only is very, very low in the returning production, but also has turnover at both the offensive and defensive coordinator positions on the staff. The offense ranks number 120 out of 133. The defense ranks number 127 out of 133. As a team, the Alabama Crimson Tide are number 125. Now I'm asking you to step like out of the data and then just like as we're just sitting here talking ball, what concerns you, or like where are you looking at this Alabama team as we head into a season that no Bryce Young, turnover everywhere, production lost.
Yep.
It's an interesting season in Tuscaloosa.
The sky's falling, and they're going to go 6-6.
Clip it, Jordan. Clip it.
No, I mean, I think it is certainly noteworthy that they were projected 4th in SP Plus. I don't think they've ever been projected lower than 2nd, maybe a 3rd somewhere in there. So yeah, the sky is, but by their standards that they've set, this is certainly a falling apart situation. But no, I mean, it's a lot of change, and he's dealt with this change before. And there is certainly, for those national powers that recruit most of the 4- and 5-star kids, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, whoever else, there is kind of a different standard when it comes to returning production. You're not going to rank Georgia's never going to rank number 1 in returning production. They're just they're going to lose too many blue chippers, and they're going to lose backups to other schools. And then they're going to sign a bunch of new 5-stars and be just fine. So I do kind of, when you look at those teams, I do kind of look at them in a different way. You know, Kent State's way down there. They're probably going to have a real tough year this year, and Alabama's going to have a real tough year by ranking 4th. So yeah, it is a difference, but I mean, that doesn't even take into account the coordinator changes. But it just acknowledges that they lost their starting quarterback, starting running back, number 3 and 4 receiving options, 3 offensive line starters, and most of the backups. Like I'm counting, there were 11 guys who had more than 30 snaps on the offensive line, and 4 of them come back. Defensively, it's a little better, but it's still top 2 defensive tackles, top 2 linebackers, and half the 2 deep of the secondary. That's just a lot. I mean, obviously they're replacing all these guys with 5 stars or high 4 stars or whatever, and it might be just fine. And maybe it's telling that he didn't really dip into the portal. You know, he kind of needed Jahmyr Gibbs last year, and we kind of knew he needed a running back last year, and he went out and got one. He didn't really do much, especially on offense. So, you know, maybe he thinks it's just fine. Maybe he's waiting until the spring portal explosion and get guys then. But it's a lot. It's a lot of change, and they'll probably be fine. But there's a slightly less sure chance of that than normal.
We don't want to clip Bill on this, but like if this happens, right? Like inevitably Bama will slide. They will not continue to be Death Star Bama, for the next 100 years. Most likely,
argue they're not Death Star Bama right now. They're just one of the best teams in college football.
Yeah. Right. So this is probably how it looks. Right. You didn't get Ryan Grubb from Washington. You had to settle for Tommy Rees. You didn't get to hire Jeremy Pruitt. Whether you believe those reports, I do. That's probably who you wanted to hire. You had to end up getting Kevin Steele, right? Like you lose Bryce Young, who NFL guys have some questions about the size, but in college, the guy's like really, really freaking good and has always been a killer, like literally for the last 6 years that he's played football. And go back to his sophomore year in Cali, a total stud. If we're doing this in 2024, looking back, we're like, okay. We could have seen this as the start of the fall, not getting the coordinators that you really wanted, not being able to replace the quarterback, losing a bunch of important guys. Like maybe SP Plus is seeing something, putting them 4th, but yet they're like ceiling and floor, which I don't want to jump ahead of that article too fast, but maybe we should, if we're talking one team, mention it. I mean, what is Bama's ceiling and floor? It's got to be
good,
really good.
Yeah, like their floor, and I define, we'll talk about this later, I guess, but I kind of looked at ceilings and floors, realistic ceilings and floors, like what has at least a 10% chance of happening, basically. Not like Nebraska having a 0.02 chance of going 12-0, therefore their ceiling is 12-0.
Yes.
Nebraska's going undefeated.
As far as semi-realistic ceilings, we're looking at 11-1 to 8-4 for Alabama. So still mostly there.
My God, Tuscaloosa would burn to the ground.
That's
break glass.
And you look at their schedule and how they're projected. They're favored in every single game, but it's 69% win probability against Texas and 72 at Mississippi State and 68 at A&M and 63. Geez, they're all in the 60s. 63 Tennessee, 65 LSU. You don't win every single game. You only win 65% of the time when you're a 65% win probability. So that does open the door if they don't overachieve the ratings, that it does open the door for a few more tight upsets here. And last year they still ended up second because of the upside they showed in their good games, and the fact that we freaked out and talked about how terrible they are this year when they lost to Tennessee and LSU in the last second on the road. Like they're still probably going to be really, really, really good, but I guess the offensive line is where I think is the biggest. Like for that ceilings and floors piece, I did a little biggest variable for each team. I just went with the overarching kind of change theme for Alabama, but really offensive line was just mediocre this last year. And because of Bryce Young, you got away with it more than you would with a mortal quarterback. So that's the one area where things absolutely have to change, and they have to change with at least at minimum two new starters. So there is that.
Not to do 25 minutes on Alabama, but
I don't know. That's good for clicks.
It is good for clicks. I assume SP Plus sees Tyler Booker as one of the returning starters, if you will.
Yeah, I mean he had 400 snaps, so he counts for that.
I think we're going to be talking about him NFL draft, in 2024.
Yeah,
really legitimate guy,
like first round guy.
Yeah, I saw him at IMG. He just looked different. I think there's a couple of reasons why Javion Cohen transferred to Miami, and he might be one of them.
We'll keep and also allegedly, maybe something about a law school.
Well, our listeners put together the dots. They found the IG. They found her IG and the aspiring law student. Where am I going to
a listener said that actually should be an off-season segment where we just we throw out things that we have heard and that cannot confirm at all, and then just let the Cover 3 internet sleuths just turn up because you at least gave them the crumb. You're like, it could be Javion Cohen who transferred to Miami. Then we found out that his girlfriend was an aspiring law student, and she went to Alabama as well. You're just kind of like, well.
That's when you've got an established podcast, by the way, is when you've got the audience that'll do work for you.
Yes. And look, we don't want anything to we don't want them to, we don't sick them on anybody, right? Because we don't want to I don't think that our listeners are like that, but we do want them to contribute to the conversation. Great research department, the Cover 3 PI, the C3 PI, Cover 3 private investigators that can turn it up on the internet.